Hello and welcome to UC Today. My name is Kieran Devlin and today's session is Certified for Success, what Microsoft's Unify program really means for Teams contact center integration. I am delighted to be joined by Gidi Adlersberg, Voca CIC Business Line Manager at AudioCodes. Gidi, thanks for joining us.
Always happy to be here, Kieran. Thanks for having me.
Before we explore exactly what Microsoft's Unify program really means for Teams Contact Center, can you please tell us a little about yourself, Gidi, and your AudioCodes journey?
Absolutely, Kieran. So I joined AudioCodes a long time ago, almost just a bit more than 10 years back. Actually joined the company as a marketing professional. So unlike, and we'll talk about it, by the way, this has some relevancy to the Unify story, so we'll close the loop on that. But joined as a marketing professional, kind of made my way more into the business development side of the company, and at some point, so started as a marketing professional in the Voca CIC team, which quite interestingly, since these days around 2015, we were already back then dealing with conversational AI technologies before it was cool, if you will. Made my way more into the business development area and grew Voca from what it was back then, a speech auto attendant that evolved into a conversational IVR solution, and of course now Microsoft Teams contact center, writing the newest technology and so on. And I'll just say one of my key passions here is to kind of start any of our journey as we evolve Voca from the customer experience and then work backwards to the technology. And being part of the AudioCodes ecosystem, there's a lot to work with. So that's been an interesting journey.
Absolutely, and as you neatly segued for me, your level of expertise and experience positions you nicely to discuss this, because the Microsoft Unify certification is attracting a lot of attention right now. For those less familiar, could you maybe please explain it in simple terms exactly what it is?
Absolutely, Kieran. So those of the audience that know the Microsoft Teams phone ecosystem well enough know that there are a few ways to connect a contact center to Microsoft Teams phone. And very simply put, Unify is the newest, shiniest, most capable integration model for how to connect a contact center with a Microsoft Teams phone. For many years, the Unify model has actually had a different name. It was called the Power model. Then about just over 6 months ago, Microsoft announced kind of an extension to Teams Phone, which they call Teams Phone Extensibility, which provided the technology framework, if you will, for this new form of integrating a contact center with Microsoft Teams Phone. The key kind of technology that leads this integration is the use of Microsoft native SDKs that give us, as a contact center solution, a direct window, if you will, to the Teams Phone media layer, also known as IC3. So basically, Microsoft IC3 is the media layer for any Microsoft Teams meeting or call. And these SDKs, again, part of the Unify model, are the foundation of how to basically make a call happen in a contact center that's connected to Teams Phone. Two key benefits from a business outcome kind of perspective for the Unify integration. The first is the standardized access to AI. Okay, so you have these days you've got many vendors that, there are many ways to bring AI to your software, right? There are plenty of, even the same technology might have different kind of ways of working with it. With the Unify model, Microsoft tells us vendors, here's how you connect with speech to text. Here's how you connect with text to speech. Here's how you connect with large language models in Azure, and so on. So that's one key benefit, is just the standardization of AI. And then even more importantly, it's the uptime. So by working with these Microsoft SDKs, we are able to provide our customers with 5 nines uptime for voice handling, essentially inheriting that from the Microsoft Teams phone media layer. So a call in Voca in that sense, or any other Unify certified CCAS, acts just like any other Teams call. It starts, stays, and ends all within Microsoft Teams.
Thanks, Gidi. I'm keen to explore this a bit more deeply. From your conversations with enterprise customers, what would you say are the biggest misconception about integrating Teams and contact centers today?
Yeah, Kieran. So I have to say, when I looked at at today's kind of questions or talking points, that was the one that actually I found really interesting, because there are a lot of misconceptions, right? And it's very easy today to people interpret technology, different technologies in different ways, and let's say that there are many ways to go wrong with how you interpret what is a real substantiated, solid integration between a contact center and Teams phone. So I have like a top 3 misconceptions list here. The first one, and we get it a lot from enterprise customers, they'll tell you, oh, my contact center is already connected, integrated with Teams. But then when we ask a few questions, we realize that that integration is really just a SIP connection, right? So really just, if you will, a call transfer between the contact center to Teams phone, which I guess you could interpret as integration, but that only goes so far, in the sense that you still have 2 separate platforms that are only connected to each other on a base of like just a call transfer. So you got all these different concerns remaining, like media is being handled in 2 separate platforms. Reporting needs to be glued together to understand what happened to a call from A to Z. So that's one big misconception. SIP connectivity, not really a solid integration between a contact center to Teams. The second misconception that I have for us is integration doesn't always equal platform consolidation. And this, by the way, I mean, kind of a continuation of the first point, in the sense that it's one thing to get 2 platforms working together. It's a completely different thing to leverage or to consolidate them to become a single platform that that caters the UCaaS and the contact center at once. Okay, so that's another big misconception: the difference between integration and true consolidation. The third one is actually I saved the best for last. So the third one is people tend to think that, oh, I'll connect my contact center to Teams, but it will still serve my kind of classic agent community, and it will allow them to bring in, let's say, a subject matter expert to an interaction if or when needed. Actually, what we find is that when you really have an integrated UC and contact center platform, it's very easy to start to democratize those customer experience capabilities to new places in the company that I always like to say they might not even know that it's called contact center. But if you went to your security team, for example, and ask them, how do you deal with a call that comes into the security team at 3 a.m.? Do you need a more effective way to route these calls to the right person that's now available or now on duty? They'll say yes all day long, and that's a pure contact center functionality. So that's another kind of big misconception, is contact center is not just for the classic agents. And once you connect it, really integrate it with something like Microsoft Teams, all of a sudden you're able to spread these capabilities all across the company.
Terrific, and I think now is an ideal time to dive into Unify specifically and how this might sort of change the game with Teams contact centers. Businesses, organizations across the globe have been integrating Teams with contact centers for years. What makes Unify such a game changer, Gidi?
So if you think about it, Kieran, when you talk about, again, there are many ways to fulfill new technologies, right? Unify, more than everything, for us, starts with a truly Azure-native approach, okay? So it's not using, again, let's call it a third-party SIP connection to bring a call into Teams. It's not even about, let's use Graph API that can do many things. As part of these, can do also calling capabilities, bring a call into Teams. Here we're talking about really leveraging the native Teams phone capabilities. So, as much as, AudioCodes, we've been around for more than 30 years now. Enterprises that work with us trust us, and we work with pretty massive enterprises worldwide. Still, with all respect to us or other vendors, our enterprise customers prefer to trust Microsoft. And if they already made their investment in Microsoft Teams, and Microsoft is now telling the world, well, Unify integration model is the model that really not even replicates, but actually mirrors how calls are handled in Teams phone, that's a huge advantage from just a credibility standpoint. The customer doesn't need, we like that they trust us, but they don't have to trust us. They trust the native Azure and Microsoft technology for the contact center as well. That's the first big thing. The second is, if you think about it, the difference between an SDK to an API approach. So, and that's maybe a bit of a more technical kind of perspective, but nevertheless, when you go and look to fulfill an API, there are many ways to get it wrong. All the way from the level of how the actual API requests are made, and then also you need to deal with race conditions, error states, many things that as part of fulfilling the API might break or might not be completely stable, especially when we're talking about more extreme scenarios of high capacity or just large volume of call handling. When you work with an SDK, on the other hand, it's a much more structured way of interacting with that technology, and much less that can go wrong in that sense, because basically Microsoft is protecting you. If once that SDK is embedded in, for example, in our agent desktop application, you know that the calls are going to be handled as expected, and there are no let's call it complexities associated with API fulfillment. The last thing is, again, if we look at it from Microsoft's point of view, the technology stack that makes up for the Unify model, I mean, we already talked extensively here about how it's the same stack that is also being used by Teams Phone, but not only. So Dynamics 365 Contact Center is actually using the very same technology stack. So when an enterprise chooses a CCaaS vendor like Voca that use the Unify model, essentially it's a great way to kind of future-proof yourself, knowing that you are going with a vendor that works with the technology that Microsoft itself uses it, not only for their UC, for Microsoft Teams, but also for their own contact center. And I think that's a huge benefit, because there's a lot of, again, technology space today is extremely dynamic. There's a lot of new technologies coming in, older technologies fading out. So it's important to know that you're choosing a technology stack that's here to stay.
Terrific, and I think it's time to dig a little deeper into the Unify certification, as naturally AudioCodes was one of the first vendors to achieve it. What did that journey look like for you guys, and what did you learn along the way?
Yeah, so actually it's been a long and super interesting journey for us. So somewhere already kind of in the end of 2021, early 2022, when we saw the opportunity to enter the Teams Connect Center space, we were immediately drawn to that technology stack that back then was only kind of in the hands of Azure Communication Services, and again, later made its way to Teams Phone Extensibility and Unify. And I'll tell you, Kieran, there were a lot of, by the way, there still are quite a few technical challenges, gaps. I remember back in those days we had partners and fellow vendors that were like, seriously, you guys are really using that technology with all these gaps? And we were like, yes, we are, because we have the kind of engineering mindset to close these gaps on our own. And the benefit of offering the 5 nines uptime and the level of stability that this brings to the enterprise was key for us. So that was kind of a technology choice we made back in 2022. And what was great about that, it allowed us to gain real-world production experience with this technology. Okay, so we're not only talking about a lab scenario where, you know, things are nice and clean and it's very sterile. We're also talking about more complex scenarios where you bring it into an enterprise that could have, you know, 10, sometimes 50, 60 contact centers in the same global enterprise, and you will encounter scenarios that you will never encounter in the lab. So we were able to kind of experience all that along the way, and that brought us to a very mature state when Microsoft finally decided to formalize it. So that started already in March of this year. In Enterprise Connect 2025 in Orlando, Microsoft announced Teams Phone Extensibility in their Enterprise Connect keynote. Was a keynote by Ilya Buchstein, Corporate Vice President of Microsoft, and AudioCodes was mentioned there as a key design partner of Teams Phone Extensibility. So that was a great moment for us, you know, after years of investment, you know, to be able to celebrate this with Microsoft. And then came the test criteria of the Unify model, which I can tell you, it's a very demanding test criteria. And our R&D and engineers had to, even though we have, you know, it was already working with customers, Microsoft came with some pretty juicy and interesting test cases that, you know, it took some work for us to get there, but we made it, and we were actually the second vendor worldwide to be announced as Unify certified, which, you know, does a great service for us. Key takeaway for me after all this journey is, you know, it's okay to be brave about a design decision when the value is clear enough. And here the value was definitely clear in the sense that we have an opportunity to go with a truly Azure-native technology stack that's going to provide a new level of stability to our customers. So that's a primary takeaway for me. As long as there is a clear value, it's okay to do things differently and to be more brave about your technology choice.
100%. I think that's a very key lesson there, is that bravery. That clarity of focus is absolutely invaluable in making these kinds of technological buying decisions.
Absolutely. I'll say, Kieran, that, you know, in many cases when we do design choices, I always like to say, if we are the only ones thinking of something, we might have got it wrong. Because, you know, with respect to us, there are plenty of really talented engineers out there working for large and small vendors, to be honest. And so I guess what I'm trying to say, you need a very good reason to do things differently. But if you see that reason, by all means, you have to go for it because it's an opportunity to bring something, end of the day, better to your customers.
No, I completely agree. And finally, Gidi, before I let you go, for a business IT or CX leader watching this, what's your single best piece of advice for planning a future-proof CX strategy?
So I'll close the loop here to the beginning of this talk, and I'll say, knowledge is power, but sometimes knowledge can also take too much. When you're too aware of technology, you might miss out on actual customer needs. And my best advice is, and I see that a lot with enterprises all over the world, always start from the actual user experience. Always start from what your users need and work back to the technology. Because it's very easy for people in this space, including us, that sometimes you understand technology so much that you almost treat that as your starting point, and you look at different technologies and you ask yourself, okay, how can I take this to the market? And I always like to say, no, do it the other way around. First, understand what your users actually need. Start your testing from actual contact centers and work your way backwards to, okay, now that I really understand what my users are looking for, what is the best technology, what is the best solution that's able to fulfill it, is my number one advice for sure.
I think that's a very shrewd and perceptive piece of advice. Unfortunately, that is time, but it has been another terrific session with you, Gidi, so thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Kieran. My pleasure. Anytime. Thank you.
And if you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share as ever on social media, and we'll see you next time. I've been Kieran Devlin, UC Today. Thanks for watching.